Well, is Adrian Brody still talking? We're good? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Hello, welcome to the Unsolicited Film Reviews podcast. This is the post-Oscar party podcast for 2025 for the 97th ceremony, hosted by Conan O'Brien. Hope you guys watched. Otherwise, what are you doing here watching us? Joining me as always is Martin Cooke. And
Hi, everybody.
so let's just get right into it. We're going to be reviewing the ceremony. We're going to let you know how we did on our picks and just do a deep dive into what we thought of the ceremony and how it all shook out. It was very unpredictable. Oscar is probably one of the most unpredictable ones in recent history, at least. So, what are your overall thoughts on the show as a whole before we do a deep dive, Martin?
My overall thoughts are probably basically what you were doing right now. I thought it was a bit of a snooze fest, to be honest with you. I just don't think that it's going to be one of those ones where there are very, very many memorable moments. It seems almost every Oscars, there's at least a couple of moments, and these days, like viral moments that come out of it. I mean, last year, for instance, there were a lot of people sending along the videos of the "I'm Just Ken" performance and things like
Hmm.
that. And I just don't know if there was anything from this ceremony that stood out necessarily. So I mean, certainly not in a good way. There may be a few cringeworthy moments, but yeah, it was all right. And just because obviously I'm a film buff as you are, and I watched the whole thing. But if I wasn't, I'm not sure I would have sat through the whole thing.
Yeah, that's kind of the trend that the Oscars have been going on for the past decade or so, unfortunately. I was actually the complete opposite. I was highly entertained
Okay, okay.
by the majority of it. I mean, there's always going to be a few lulls, and we'll get into that as we go. But uh, so what did you think of Conan as a host, though?
I thought it was all right. I thought I'm not entirely sure. Like he's hosted other things before. This was his first time hosting the Oscars, though. And I don't entirely know if this kind of plays to his strengths as a comedian, because Conan can do sort of really off the wall things. And I think Oscar hosts need to be a bit quippier. And that's not really, I mean, Conan can definitely be quippy, don't get me wrong, but that's not really his strength as a comedian. His strength is coming up with just like really bizarre, funny things and self deprecating humor, which he did have a bunch of that, as he always does. But I thought it was all right, but I don't think this showed Conan at his best.
Damn, I thought he was brilliant. I thought
Okay.
I thought his opening monologue was one of the best I've ever seen. Uh, and I don't like the quippy ones. I don't like Jimmy Kimmel in this arena. Like
Oh,
and
well, yeah, yeah. See, I'm not sure I'd consider Jimmy Kimmel to be quippy either.
okay, so who would you say, like Billy Crystal?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
Billy Crystal. Yeah, is
okay.
probably the epitome of that kind of Oscar host that I think is perfect for that occasion, which is why they brought him back so many damn times.
Yeah, I thought the opening monologue was just absolutely hilarious, but also very sweet at the end when he acknowledged all the people who never get the accolades, like the costumers, the caterers, and all the not even like just way beneath the line people that contribute to what we all love, the art of cinema. And
Yeah,
as you said, he was self-deprecating. I thought all the jokes landed for me, and not everybody's gonna laugh at everything, but
yeah.
he walked that line between kind of controversial but not going into full Ricky Gervais territory. Like
Yeah, I think he was very controversial, to be honest with you.
yeah, I mean,
Uh,
some people push back at his Kendrick Lamar Drake joke and his jab at Sophia Gascon, but
yeah,
yeah,
but those were both pretty
yeah.
light jokes. But
I mean, everything's going to offend somebody, so.
yeah, I suppose. Yeah, yeah, and I've seen a couple of people didn't like his joke about standing up to a Russian, but whatever. Some people, yeah, as you say, somebody's not gonna like something.
Yeah, and I love the musical number he did where he said he's not going to waste time, and
Waste
then
time.
it goes on for like 4 or 5 minutes just wasting our
Yeah,
time. And Bringing out the sandworm from Doom to play Chops was that had me in stitches. Especially like this a little subtle comedy thing. They had the sandworm wearing a bow tie, which
Yeah.
I just thought was genius. Just a subtle little thing. Like the sandworm was funny in itself, but putting a bow tie on it was great.
Yeah, no, I did like that, and again, that is kind of the stuff that Conan's really good at, as I say, the kind of off the wall humor. Um, I'm just not sure that, like, I don't think the crowd really reacted to it the way, and if you don't get the I don't know, I'm just not sure, as I said, that was the best venue for his kind of humor. Even though, yeah, I enjoyed it as well. I love the sandworm bit.
And then throughout the night, he made. I mean, I don't know if this is a director decision but he kind of floated in and out of the ceremony very seamlessly, and that's a tough line to walk again. And you don't want to overstay your welcome, but you also don't want to make yourself so scarce that people forget you're the host.
Yeah, he did do a good job of that. And again, maybe that was more the whoever was in charge of the overall production. Because you're right, sometimes in the past there have been hosts where you see them at the beginning, they give them the opening monologue and maybe a couple of jokes. And then you don't see them for an hour and a half. And yeah, they're not really the host at that
Mm.
point. You're right. Conan definitely felt like the host of the night, which was good.
And since it kicked off the show, I thought that Ariana Grande and Cynthia Erivo's opening medley was very well done. I was actually moved by it, to be honest.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, they both got pipes, that's for sure.
So though, as always, there's shocks and surprises. What stood out to you in that arena?
I don't know if I was shocked by anything, just because, you said at the beginning, right off the top, that this was one of the most unpredictable ceremonies in a long time. And I think that's part of the thing. Like, we knew going in it was going to be kind of unpredictable. We knew that there weren't overwhelming favorites in a lot of the categories. And so by that, there weren't any big shocks of things that happened that we didn't really expect. Like, I think in terms of awards, maybe the biggest surprise was that Mikey Madison won over Demi Moore, just because Demi Moore had won the Golden Globe. I think she won the SAG, and a few of the previous ones leading up to the Oscars. But even that, I didn't think was a shock, especially given how well Anora did it overall, and also Mikey Madison would have been my choice if I had a vote, because I thought she was absolutely brilliant. In terms of biggest surprises, it might have just been that Anora. I mean, even though it was only quote unquote 5 Oscars, it seemed like a pretty overwhelming win for Anora, and that kind of surprised me. Like, I figured it would do well and win a couple of awards, but it was definitely Anora's night, and I didn't really see that coming.
Yeah, like we've said in the past, there was no Oppenheimer type front runner
Yeah.
like there was last year, so everything was kind of up in the air, just with the exception of a few categories. So, yeah, it was definitely 100% Mikey Madison winning, but she was kind of on a roll with the BAFTAs and the SAG awards. So,
Oh, did Mikey win the SAG as well?
yeah.
Oh, okay. I got that wrong, and I thought Demi Moore had won that one too. Okay. Yeah.
So
So,
that the unpredictability was certainly reflected in our Oscar predictions.
oh yeah. Okay. So I haven't done the numbers, but yeah, crunch the numbers. What do we got?
So we only really predicted 20 out of the 23 categories because we weren't
That's
able
right.
to watch the shorts.
Yeah.
So the winner of this heated and deeply personal contest, there was no winner. We tied
Look at
in
that.
true unsolicited film reviews fashion.
Yeah. Even though we picked a lot of different things.
Yes, we did. So yeah, we each obviously missed six, and you took the early lead and you just fell off right at the end because you missed on Best Picture, Director, and Actress. You
Yeah.
were you were ahead most of the night, and the only other three you missed were editing, animated feature, and sound.
Right. Okay.
I missed on sound makeup and hairstyling, original screenplay, actor, and actress. So we each missed some of the big ones, but I came through with the last two with Best Director and Best Picture. So.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a weird year, and I think 14 out of 20 for both of us is still fairly strong.
It's not terrible. Yeah, that's not bad.
Not great for people that have, actually watched all these films, but
No.
it's a popularity contest at the end of the day. So what are you gonna do?
Yeah.
So let's just get into the show and our general notes. I thought it was again surprisingly funny, but not just because of Conan. I thought the likes of John Lithgow, Adam Sandler, Ben Stiller, and Bowen Yang were all hilarious, among other things.
Yeah, the Adam Sandler Chalamet was a nice little joke. I definitely appreciated that one. I don't know if everybody appreciated it, but I thought it was pretty funny.
Yeah,
Uh, and
Chalamet
yeah,
does.
and Lithgow is just always. I mean, Lithgow's such a brilliant actor because he could do comedy, he could do drama, he could do. Yeah, John Lithgow's just amazing. So anytime you get to see John Lithgow, I'm all in favor of it.
Yeah, Chalamet does seem kind of like that, little too self-serious.
Yeah, yeah,
But Lithgow doing that disappointed grandpa look, where's he getting it? And then Jody, yeah, there you
I can't
go. Well, we're not all John Lithgow,
even. Yeah.
and he's slated as the new Dumbledore in the Harry Potter series, so that should be interesting.
Interesting. Okay.
And yeah, the Sandler, great, and then the moment between Lithgow and Bo and Yang during the best costume presentation was great because Lithgow tried to join in on the cringe
Yes. Yeah.
with Lily Rose Depp and Elle Fanning, who are about 70 years his junior, give or take.
Probably. Yeah. No, and
And
the way he said it, yes, cringe. Like, yes, I really know what that means. That was pretty good.
and it was only 25 minutes before the first award was presented.
Yeah. I will say, just on the when they had the five of them standing up there, um, they did that for a bunch of the awards where they had people come up and then talk about each of the nominees. And look, it's good to talk about the nominees and give the people who aren't going to win a little bit of credit and talk them up. But I don't think that's the right way to do it because it ends up being the same damn thing every time. It's like so and so, I am awed by your talent. Blah 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 blah. Like how many fucking times do we have to hear that over and over again? I just don't think it adds anything to the show. And they did that for what I don't know, five, six awards like that.
Yeah,
Uh,
interestingly, they didn't do it for the actors this year, which is what they
yeah,
usually save it for.
yeah,
And it is, the Oscars are Hollywood's biggest circle jerk, and everybody's there just to congratulate themselves and their
yeah,
peers, and you know good on them, I guess. But yeah, they did it far too often on
yeah.
on Sunday.
Yeah, and they've done it in previous years, and every time I'm like, this isn't necessary.
Yes, your aura is just so astounding.
It's yeah, and every time it's the same sort of thing. But anyway, like they've already been nominated for awards. That's the reward. Come on.
Yeah, they can never get enough praise, though. I mean,
Yeah,
they're actors, the most insecure people on earth. But then again, they didn't do it for the actors, so.
yeah, yeah. Weird.
So speaking of the first award being presented, we're not going to go line by line, and that'll be way too long. But Kieran Culkin was definitely the most on brand accepted speech of the night. It took him 2 seconds before he dropped the F bomb, I
Something like that. Yeah.
believe. And I think that was on everybody's bingo card that he just really has no filter.
No, no. And again, yeah. So his character is probably pretty much like who he is in real life. But anyway,
Yeah, and talking about he's calling out his wife for promising him more babies if he wanted an Oscar. It's like again, the first half hour, 45 minutes were just a nonstop laugh riot for me.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty funny too. And some people were upset at that, but I thought maybe they interpreted it differently than I did. But anyway, we don't need to litigate that whole speech that he made. But
I mean,
uh,
his wife was laughing, and if
yeah,
she's laughing, does it matter what anybody else thinks? It's
no,
pretty
no,
personal
exactly.
between those two. If she was sitting there with her arms folded, scowling, it'd be one
Yeah,
thing, but
yeah,
just it's none of your business, so who
no.
cares?
But anyway, yeah, because I thought like I heard some people were like, "Oh, he was telling his wife that he needs more babies," and I thought it was the other way around. I thought he was saying that she told him that she wanted the baby. So I don't know. People just like to get upset about everything these days.
Yeah,
So
get a
anyway,
life, people, get a life.
yeah. What else do we got? There was a big Bond tribute. You got thoughts on
Yeah,
that?
and we talked about this very briefly before the mics heated up here, but
Yes.
I thought that would have been your highlight of the night, but apparently you're left a little wanting in that regard.
It's true. It's true. I did know we should mention for people who don't know the reason why. I think the reason why, I mean, it's a little unclear, but I think the reason why they did a tribute to James Bond was in part because the longtime producers of the James Bond franchise, the Broccoli family, yes, that's their name, have now finally, after years and years and years of resisting giving up any control, finally giving up creative control to Amazon. Um, so was this a tribute? Was this a farewell? Because giving creative control to Amazon maybe not the best idea, but we'll see. And yeah, you nailed it. I'm a huge James Bond fan. That should have been right up my alley. And look, I thought Margaret Qualley was great starting it off. It did leave me a bit wanting that one. Like I don't know. It was just like some of the Bond songs and some dancing but overall it didn't feel like Bond to me. Like
Hmm.
it just felt like a random song and dance number that could have sort of been for everything, for anything except that it happened to have like I don't know. It just didn't feel Bond enough to me. It didn't really feel like, aside from singing a couple of songs, it didn't feel like a tribute to Bond so much to me. It just kind of felt there. So yeah,
Hmm.
it did leave me a bit wanting, which maybe is a surprise.
Yeah, I was shocked when you told me that, and yeah, I thought the performers did a good job. Um, I guess it would have been nice to have uh, a past Bond just make an appearance, whether
Yeah,
it's Pierce Brosnan, Daniel Craig,
yeah.
but
Or even some of the, they are movies. Show a bunch of the images of the movies on the screen behind them, instead of just the dancers and singers. I don't know.
yeah, when because as I was watching it, and you were en route from Mexico to Canada at the time, so you weren't able to watch it live, so we weren't texting back and forth like we usually do. But I was like, oh my God, Martin's gonna love this.
Yeah, I will say, like overall, I think I'm definitely way more negative about the program than you are this year. I'll admit, in part, that could be because I got back and like watched it after midnight after I got off of a plane, but I don't think so. I think these are general, fairly honest reactions.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I was drinking champagne and eating charcuterie and caviar and appetizers of all sorts. So I
Well,
was more like, yeah,
okay.
like I was more in the mood, I guess. Like
You were more in the Bond style than if you're
yeah, good point.
caviar and stuff. Wow.
Oh, again, the Conan bit about his Cinestream thing and kind of inventing movie theaters, where it's an app where people actually go out and watch movies. I thought that
Yeah.
was very timely and very brilliantly done. The way that they got Martin Scorsese involved, because
Yeah.
he's one of the advocates for the movie going
That
experience.
people still need
Actually,
to go to theaters. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. So I thought that was very maybe a little inside baseball, but very well done.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, yeah. Who knows what the general public watching at home thought, but I agree. It was well done. Yeah.
So there was a lot of hullabaloo about the in memoriam, as there usually is, because there's never enough time to showcase everybody that passed in the
No,
industry.
no. Yeah,
But
I mean, every year there's going to be people they've left out, and yeah, I've seen some of the stuff about some names like Tony Todd, Bernard Hill, Michelle Trachtenberg, who had just died a couple of days earlier. Um, but overall, yeah, you can't have everybody in there. Um, I don't know. I thought they started well after a little tribute to Gene Hackman. They started the actual in memoriam part with Maggie Smith, ended with Gene Hackman. I thought those were about as perfect bookends as you could get. I mean, both of them Oscar winners, so that's kind of perfect. Um, yeah, I thought the in memoriam this year was perfectly fine.
I did it did kind of rub me the wrong way that they left out Théoden of Rohan and the captain of the Titanic, though. So
Yeah, yeah, Bernard Hill. That was disappointing. But yeah,
I actually thought the song choice was awful, though, for the in memoriam, which was Mozart's Requiem in D minor. And the reason for that is it's so overused as like, oh, okay, this is a sad moment that it's kind of become a parody of itself,
hmm.
and it's just so just melodramatic and depressing. Which I mean, we're talking about basically a funeral for these people, so it should be. But I'm a much bigger fan of when they bring out an artist or a piano player or someone to like really I don't know. It just seems a lot more emotional than kind of this almost canned sounding song that again it's so overused.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I just think it's a great piece of music. So yeah, it's a little overused, but it's still great. So that didn't bother me at all.
So I guess another maybe not surprise because I didn't pick this for any of the Oscars, but I know Nosferatu got shut out,
Yeah,
and I just think the Academy is not ready to fully acknowledge Robert Eggers' work just yet. I think he's still kind of making his bones, which is
yeah. I,
weird
I
because
think he's going to end up being one of these guys that just some year he'll have a movie and it'll get like 8 Oscars. And people will be like, "Oh yeah, Robert Eggers," when he's been around forever, and it'll also be one of those like, yeah, he's done a lot of great stuff. Maybe it's about time we finally recognized him. But obviously, they're not at that stage yet. I don't think I had picked Nosferatu for anything either. Although, in terms of my what I thought should win, I think I had it winning three or something. So yeah, I'm not surprised, but I'm a little disappointed that it didn't win a few.
yeah, you're correct. You picked Nosferatu in what should win in three out of the four categories it was nominated for, but you didn't pick
Yeah,
what actual win. So,
yeah,
and I think along those same lines, I think the Oscar or the Academy is doing the same thing to Timothy Chalamet, and you made that point in our prediction podcast because I thought he might break through and win this year, and it seems like they're kind of trying to Leonardo DiCaprio him,
yeah, yeah, yeah. Bide your time, son. Yeah, kind of that sort of thing. Yeah,
and it's probably going to come at some point, and it's probably not going to be his best role, which is what they did with DiCaprio when he won for The Revenant.
yeah, it's true.
He
Although,
tried the hardest,
I
but
mean, he'll be in Dune 3, which is based on the second Dune book, and that's going to be a very interesting role for him. And I have a feeling that Dune in general maybe hasn't had that many nominations because it's kind of going to be one of those Lord of the Rings things where everybody waits until the third one and then they nominate it for everything. So I wouldn't be surprised if something like that happens for Dune 3. And who knows if there aren't any other amazing performances, maybe he'll take it even as soon as 2 years from now.
the only thing about Lord of the Rings is it was all three of those movies were nominated for 10 plus Oscars
Yeah,
in each respective year,
that's true. They just didn't win for, yeah,
and Dune isn't really racking up that kind of
that's true.
support.
Should we get to the speeches?
Sure. What was your favorite speech?
Uh, okay, so my favorite speech was probably the speeches by the filmmakers behind the Oscar winner for Best Documentary, No Other Land. Um, and there were four of them that got four producers and filmmakers that got the Oscar, but two of them spoke, and I believe the two. I could be wrong, but because I was looking at the list, I think the two who spoke were Basil Adra and Yuval Abraham. Um, and in what is almost certainly the most complex and complicated and emotional issue in the world today, they talked about finding the common humanity in this incredibly intense conflict. Um, they also, they managed to call out and condemn the crimes of the October 7th Hamas attack and also call attention to the fact that Palestinians live in an unequal and discriminatory system. And that, yeah, these, one Palestinian, one Jew, they came together to make this film. And I just thought their speech was, in this time of where we really need people to be able to look past their differences and come together. I just thought that that was very good speeches by those guys.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think we both picked the speech by the filmmakers behind Zone of Interest last year in when we were talking about our favorite speeches. And yeah, I think this was kind of the same, not the same issue, obviously, but definitely in the same spirit.
Right.
Where, yeah, the probably the most divisive issue of our time, no matter what side of the political aisle you are on. It's extremely complicated, and it takes a lot of peeling back layers and getting through propaganda to really figure out where one should stand on this issue. It's not there's no like primary villain in either case. It's just again extremely complex, extremely divisive. But the fact that these two guys can come together and make a
Yeah.
documentary about unity in this one of the most divisive issues that are out there right now. It was very inspiring, and
Yeah.
in an industry where people say a lot of words without saying anything, they actually said something.
Yeah, they actually said something, and also just the fact of them being there and making this movie. An Arab Palestinian, a Jewish Israeli. The fact that just even if they hadn't said anything, that would have been a statement. But the fact that they also said something in their speeches, I thought was great.
And speaking of saying a lot of words without saying much, let's get to the longest Oscar speech in the Academy's 97-year history.
Before we do that, because I know in the show notes you had favorite speech, worst speech, and then you had Brody's speech. um, and so, because I knew we were going to talk about Brody's speech, I want to also call out another horrible speech,
Okay.
another worst speech, which, and for me, that was the god awful and cringeworthy speech by Camille, I guess her name is the winner for the song El Mal from Amelia Perez. Uh, I mean, I don't know what was going on there, except maybe she was trying to prove that Amelia Perez shouldn't have won any Oscars. It was just embarrassing. And then she starts like going off and singing, and you can tell everybody on the stage just wants to get her off. I don't know what was happening there, but just like the movie as a whole, that was just embarrassing.
Oh my God, that like the word cringe is extremely overused these days, but
But
that is a dictionary definition.
yeah,
It was so awkward. I felt just yeah, I was crawling in my skin and I wasn't even in the arena.
yeah,
It's just like,
yeah.
and yeah,
In a room
what
full of like just incredibly talented people. And as you pointed out, beginning of the night, we had heard Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande, sing their hearts out, and then we have this woman. I don't even know what she was trying to do. It was wow.
yeah, yeah, it's kind of like the film that she was representing. It was just like, what the fuck did I just watch?
Yeah,
It's
basically.
like watching a train wreck,
Yeah,
and she was. It wasn't tongue in cheek or sarcastic at all. She was like really trying to
Oh,
belt
she was
it
an
out.
artist.
Wow, man.
Yeah. Wow.
That was nuts. Yeah, that was also my worst speech, even though it wasn't. Although I think she did more singing than the entirety of the film.
Yeah.
Or
Maybe
just
she
kind of,
wanted a do-over for the song. I don't know.
Emilia Perez, the sequel. She's back and she's pissed. So,
Uh,
yeah. So I think the thing that made the most headlines was Adrian Brody's 5 minute and 40-second speech, which
yeah.
was the longest in Oscar history by anybody for any category. And it felt as long as The Brutalist, which, okay, so it's on brand.
It was definitely on brand. Yeah, you're right. No, I thought that was ridiculous. And especially when, at the first time the orchestra tried to play him off, and he's like, "Oh, I've been here before. This isn't my first rodeo, man." Well, yeah, then you should know better, Adrian, and like have something better prepared. And here's the thing: it always amazes me that these people who are the best in the world at reading prepared lines can't seem to do it right for a 45-second speech. Like, what is going on?
That's why
Do
they
they,
need screenwriters.
yeah, do they all need to hire screenwriters to tell them what to say? I guess they do, because that was just ridiculous. And also, like, look, maybe if he had said something interesting or profound, that could have been justified, but he didn't. He rambled on very slowly for a while, like that, talking like that, as if his speech was more important than everybody else's. And I
Hmm.
thought it was just arrogant. Uh,
Yeah, he came off as a total douchebag.
yeah, just like a self-important prick. And so, yeah, that was terrible.
Yeah, if he would have addressed, the growing anti-Semitism worldwide or something like that, and he did very briefly, but then he kind of threw it in with like racism and just hate overall, which, okay,
Yeah,
wow, you're a hero.
yeah,
Great. But to drone on for almost 6 minutes without saying anything, again,
yeah. And
the
again, it
brute.
was mostly about him,
Yeah,
um, and like his acting. Like, oh, I don't know. Like, this is a guy who already who already has an Oscar. And at times it almost felt like he was trying to make us feel sorry for him.
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
I didn't know what was going on there. Like, dude, you've now got two Oscars. Shut the fuck up.
yeah,
Get to your after party and like, I don't know, leave the stage to other people. Yeah, I don't know.
yeah. But again, it was like the Brutalist. It was extremely long and didn't really have much to say.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Or
maybe,
it did have to say. I actually, I'll give the Brutalist a little more credit than that. I think Brutalist did have something to say. I think it just got the message got confused a lot in that movie.
yeah,
But
okay, yeah. But yeah, he was just so self-serving and
yeah,
so like, oh, poor me. You've been a famous actor for damn near 30 years. You've won two Oscars for Best Leading Actor. It wasn't even like you won supporting and then kind of, worked his way up the ladder or anything. Like,
yeah.
no, dude, you've been working constantly and
He's never
consistently.
really been out, like he hasn't gone through like a 10 year in the wilderness where he wasn't getting work either. So I didn't know what was going on there.
Yeah, you just came off like an absolute asshole. So, unless you have any random thoughts before we get into like who won the night, who lost the night. Okay.
Oh, let's get into it.
All right. Who won the night? And I think it's probably going to be unanimous here.
Yeah, it's definitely Sean Baker.
Yeah.
They did. Anora won 5 Oscars, 4 of them he won. So obviously he was producer and everything. So he won the best picture. He won best director. He also edited that film. And what was the fourth one actually? Uh,
Screenplay.
oh, of course, screenplay. Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, that's pretty incredible. That's also a record, actually, for most Oscars won by a person in a single movie in one Oscars. So that's unbelievable. And for a guy who, not that long ago, just a few years ago, was making feature films on his iPhone, This guy.
Yeah, the
That
Florida
was,
Project. Yeah.
the this is no was it that one? I thought anyway. Um, that's just an incredible rise. And now he's the toast of Hollywood, literally. So that is it's great. Well, not literally. He's not toast. I don't know.
Exactly.
I don't know why I said that, but anyway, he actually is the toast of Hollywood. I meant like people were toasting him. Anyway, uh, so yeah, it's definitely Sean Baker.
Yeah, the only reason well, I think he actually made both of his first two features on the iPhone, so I think that's
Oh, okay, okay, yeah.
the only reason I know for a fact he did is because his cinematographer came to speak to us when I was going to school in New York. So,
Oh, cool.
yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, it was an historic night, and directors never edit their own films, especially once they've made it. And
Yeah.
I honestly didn't know that it was. I knew the film was nominated for best editing, but I didn't know that he was the editor. And talk
No,
about poor.
sometimes they'll jump into the editing bay and sit there with the editor as they're going through some of the stuff. But yeah, it's pretty rare that they do the editing as
Yeah, I
well.
mean, you go
That's
down the
just a
list of the
lot of work.
yeah, you go down the list of the greats like Spielberg, Scorsese, Tarantino. They all have editors that they constantly work with because it's almost like a marriage because you
Yeah,
spend so much time together. But yeah, for a director to direct, write, and edit, I mean, talk about pouring your heart and soul into a project. So I mean,
absolutely.
and
Yeah,
it paid off for him. So that was very inspiring.
yeah. Tangerine was the one that I was thinking of.
Yeah.
That
Okay.
was iPhone filmed as well.
Yep.
Um, yeah, and I thought actually he was very gracious in all his speeches. I thought he came across really well, to be
Yeah.
honest. Like he
Yeah.
seemed like a good guy. He just, yeah. So overall, definitely his night in the fact that he won, but also the fact that I'm sure there's a lot of people who are like, oh man, I'd love to work with Sean Baker right now.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I mean, he's going to be the next hot name that everybody's going to want to work with, and I mean, yeah, and of course, as an offshoot of that, Mikey Madison. I mean,
Yeah,
her asking price just probably quintupled.
yeah, yeah.
And a quick shout out to Quentin Tarantino for I mentioned this last on our
You
last
did.
podcast that
Yeah,
casting the Manson family with Austin Butler, Mikey Madison, Sydney Sweeney,
Margaret
and
Qualley.
yeah, Margaret Qualley. Yeah, so they're all like it people in Hollywood now. So
Absolutely.
and Sean Baker called out Tarantino and said that without that, this movie wouldn't have been made, and
Exactly.
definitely
Yeah.
at least Mikey Madison would have been cast in this role. So
Yeah. Again, just very gracious of Sean Baker, I thought.
on the flip side, who lost tonight?
So I'm gonna go instead of going with like the most obvious answer and say Amelia Perez, I'm gonna say Netflix lost
Mm.
the night because Netflix were the ones who picked up and promoted Amelia Perez. They didn't actually; it wasn't actually a Netflix. But like, I don't think they made it. If I remember correctly, I think they bought it. But still,
They usually don't.
Netflix
Yeah.
Netflix for years has been trying to get Best Picture Oscar, and every time they just get shut out. And this year, it seemed like this was going to be their best chance. You know, Amelia Perez had the most Oscar nominations, and then it got, nailed by all the scandal and people realizing that it was a terrible movie. And and once again, Netflix comes up basically empty-handed. And at this point, like it's hard to feel sorry for Netflix because they're Netflix, but I almost do feel bad for them. They just cannot get it right with finding an Oscar winner. So I think for me, Netflix lost the night.
Yeah, it's a very good point. For me, I will go with the obvious. And oh, before I do, I guess we got to mention that Neon Studios, the independent distributor of Anora, has won Best Picture twice in the past 5 years. The other being Parasite.
Yeah, yeah,
So there's kind of
yeah.
a
Netflix.
yeah. And I guess there's kind of a small rivalry brewing between them and A24 as who's
Good.
the Titan and the kind of, I don't know if even can you count A24 as independent? I guess still you can, but they're not one of like the big five. So
Yeah, yeah, they're not a studio, but yeah, they're pretty big, but they still make medium budget movies, and
mhm.
lots of them. And yeah, no, good. We need more people in that space. And so if there's a rivalry, they're looking for good projects. That's only for the better of the movie industry.
Yeah, and I remember when we were in school, the business of film classes that we took, the professors were just like, "Oh, the mid-budget movie's dead. You either got to make one for $1 million or $200 million," and that turns out not to be the case. There's always going to be a market for those, and it just shows you that nobody knows anything in this fucking
Yeah,
industry.
exactly. Yeah. The old Will
Okay,
Oldman line. Yeah.
yep. So back to Who Lost Tonight, I will go with the obvious and say Amelia Perez.
Right.
They had all the momentum going into award season, and they were nominated for 13 Oscars. Only came out of winning two, best song, and of course Zoe Saldana for best supporting actress, even though she was the lead actress. And
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Yeah,
but
I've talked about how that's weird, but anyway.
but without any controversy, I could have seen it sweeping, and we discussed that in the past. And if there was a 2025 Oscars where Amelia fucking Perez wins double digit Oscars, I would have just like put the proverbial gun to my head.
Yeah.
But interesting point I want to bring up quickly. There's this controversy going around of category fraud. Have you heard of this?
No.
Where so the way it works is movies get to nominate their own um filmmakers slash actors and all the way down for specific categories. So that's what the for your consideration is about.
Right.
So if there's
Yeah, that's how Zoe Saldana ended up in Best Supporting rather than Best Actress. And yeah,
exactly, and same kind of with
it was up to the makers of Amelia Perez to do that.
right. So it's not up to the Academy to
No.
nominate anybody that's not already put forward for them. The same kind of goes with Kieran Culkin because he was not a supporting actor. He only had a minute and 40 seconds less screen time than the main actor Jesse Eisenberg. And a lot of times in the past, there's been multiple people nominated in the same category for the same movie. And like you go back to like Thelma and Louise is probably the prime example.
Right.
But so what these studios are doing is they're putting forward people where they think they can kind of weasel their way into a category, even though they don't really qualify for that category. So
Mm.
that's kind of been a big controversy, and I'm wondering if the Academy is going to do something to stymie that because that does seem kind of fucked up.
It does. I will say though that this isn't exactly new. Like this is there have been controversies about this in the past. I mean, probably most famously, um, back in Silence of the Lambs, Anthony Hopkins won for Best Actor,
Mm.
which is ridiculous considering he's only on screen for about 17 minutes or something like that. Like he was clearly a supporting actor. He stole every scene he was in. There's no question about that. But that's not the same thing as being Best Actor. So this isn't a new thing. But yeah, as studios and production companies get a bit more sophisticated in terms of trying to mine those Oscars, maybe this is something the Academy will have to look at. I don't know. I don't really know what they could do other than being the judges themselves of what categories people go into, and I just don't know if they're up for that. To be
Mm.
honest,
Yeah, they do seem to be kind of spineless when the rubber meets the
yeah,
road. And I'm a big fan of Zoe Saldana, but between the material she won for and this um kind of trying to shoehorn her into best supporting actress, I think this is always going to have a bit of an asterisk on it.
yeah, I agree. Yeah.
So another big loser, not to sound like Trump, a big loser was Demi Moore, who had every expectation of winning the Best Actress for The Substance, and we both agree she did a very good job, probably the best work of her career.
Mhm.
But she looked pretty pissed off, at least for the first couple seconds when Mikey Madison was announced as the winner, and uh, she tried to cover it up with Grayson clapping toward like after about 2 seconds, but she looked visibly stunned. And Variety's body language expert actually agrees with me, so it's not just me.
Okay, okay. Yeah, I didn't notice that necessarily. I think you're right that she sort of thought she was going to win. Because yeah, when you see it, she was kind of on the edge of her seat. Like and it wasn't just like an anticipation. I think it was almost like, oh, I'm gonna get up. Um, but maybe you're right. I didn't look at it that carefully, so I didn't notice that she looked pissed off. But I think you're right that she definitely thought she was going to win.
And I am definitely rolling with the BAFTAs from here on out as far as acting goes, because
Hmm.
if you remember last year, Lily Gladstone swept every award imaginable on the heel on Killers of the Flower Moon.
Mhm.
And then at the very last second, Emma Stone for Poor Things started gaining momentum, won the BAFTA, and wound up winning the Oscar. So in next year's predictions, I'm just rolling with whatever the BAFTAs choose.
Yeah, although it's so hard to tell. I mean, people have tried to do these "what's a predictor of what" thing for so long, and sometimes it seems like some things are, and sometimes it just goes the other way entirely. The only thing we know for sure is that the Golden Globes are not really a predictor of anything, um, because their voting body doesn't really overlap at all with the voting body of the Oscars. The biggest overlap would be SAG, because the Academy is, the biggest chunk of Academy voters are from the Screen Actors Guild. But again, that doesn't always seem to be a predictor either. So who the hell knows, really?
But yeah, the last two Best Actress awards have been pretty shocking upsets.
Yeah, yeah. Although again, I thought Mikey Madison had a chance. I mean, I predicted Demi Moore would win, but I thought Mikey Madison had a chance. And again, that's who I would have voted for. So I
Yeah,
was
me too.
I
Yeah.
was pleasantly surprised. Even though, yes, Demi Moore, I agree, that probably almost certainly the best work of her career.
Mm. And unfortunately, she's probably not gonna get another crack at this. She
Or not.
might, but I mean, she's not Meryl Streep.
No, no, that's true. Yeah, Meryl Streep's probably got 10 more cracks at it. Who knows?
Especially since it was so deeply personal, the whole aging out of Hollywood when you were a former
Right,
sex symbol,
right.
the the Meryl Streeps, the Helen Mirrens, Judy Dench's, or whatever, were like sex symbols.
No, well, Helen Mirren maybe, but yeah, but definitely not Judi Dench and Meryl Streep.
So the again, nobody really watches the Oscars anymore, unfortunately. Uh, they were up 1% from last year, with a
Yeah,
total of 19.7 million viewers worldwide, which is not a good number. And even that 19.7 was a 5-year high for the ceremony.
right. Which isn't
The
a huge surprise when you consider that a couple of those years were COVID affected, and so a lot of movies, like there were barely any movies that came out for 2 years. So that's not a huge surprise, I guess. But yeah, it's still not great.
So just to put that in perspective, the highest rated Academy Awards was in 1998 when Titanic was the front runner, which garnered almost 60 million viewers, so triple what we had this year. And to your point, in the during 2021 in the pandemic, it was the very lowest at 10.5 billion. So it's not in the middle. It's about double what it was during the pandemic, but it's still nowhere near what the height of highs was. What
Yeah,
do you think it will take for people to start watching this again? Because when I was growing up, it was kind of a can't miss moment. It was almost like the Super Bowl, like people would have parties, everybody would do their Oscar polls, pools, I mean, and everybody would be, putting money in to see who would win the most categories. But and let's face it, Anora only grossed 15 million. Nobody watched it.
No, no, yeah, and a lot of the movies that were nominated for Best Picture this year, nobody saw. I mean, nobody saw I'm Still Here. Very few people saw The Substance. Same with a couple of the others. Like, yeah, a lot of people just didn't see these movies. I think there's two things. One thing I will say is that tracking metrics these days are very imperfect between people just watching them. Like it took a couple of days. Actually, at first it seemed like the numbers were down, and then it took a couple of days before some of the digital platform numbers came in, and then that bumped it up. And people who are just watching it on their cell phone or whatever, and all the numbers to try to capture what exactly the audience is for something these days, they don't entirely work. Like it's not like everybody's just sitting around their television and they got the Nielsen boxes on them, and within a relative, a reasonable certainty how many people are tuning in. We don't really know these days because people consume information and consume things in so many different ways. And some people aren't going to watch the whole broadcast. They'll just wait and see the YouTube clips the next couple of days or see whatever TikTok somebody makes out of anything. So that's the first point. That it's, I think,
That's a very studio friendly argument, though.
yeah, no, but I think the first point is that the numbers are incomplete, and we're just frankly never going to know. The next point is that it's never going to reach the heights of the '90s again. The Oscars are still by far actually the most watched award show. So more than the Grammys, more than the BAFTAs, obviously more than all the others, more than the People's Choice Awards or whatever fucking awards they got. It is still the most watched, but I think this speaks to something that people have been talking about for years, which is the death of monoculture.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
First of all, there's and that accounts for both movies. There aren't as many people watching the same movies as there used to be because people could watch movies in so many different ways. But also, there aren't as many people watching even the same award shows or programs anymore. And I think that's just kind of what we're going to have to accept going forward, is that we're never going to get back up to the 50, 60 million kind of numbers that we might have seen 20, 25 years ago. Um, that said, it's hard to know what to make of this year's numbers versus last year's. The fact that this year's were a bit higher because last year actually did have at least a few big movies that a lot of people had seen, right? Like obviously Barbenheimer, the Oppenheimer and Barbie, a lot of people saw those movies. But I think also Top Gun Maverick got nominated for um, what was like a special effects award or
Yeah,
something
yeah.
like that. And obviously, a million, a billion people watched that movie. So it's weird that this year's was actually up, considering it didn't have any of those big standout films. I think maybe some of that is the spillover. Like people who thought, oh, last year's ceremony was kind of fun. Maybe I'll tune in this year. We don't know, or haven't dived into the numbers enough to know how many people tuned in for just the first half hour and then tuned out when they realized, oh, I don't know any of these movies this year. So I turned it off, and maybe those numbers still counted. So I don't know if it was the higher numbers this year were spillover from last year, or if they're actually that people wanted to tune in and watch these movies this year. I just don't know.
Yeah, and I'm not saying like, the latest Marvel movie should just automatically be nominated for Best Picture because it's higher gross. And even then, that's kind of an outdated analogy because Marvel's kind of sinking as well.
Yeah, that's true.
But yeah, I'm not saying like the highest grossing movies should all be nominated for Best Picture. Like I don't think Deadpool Wolverine should be should have been thrown in there, although it was one of the most, if not the most entertaining movie of the year. But maybe throw in a category for like blockbuster achievement or something like that. And
Well, the Golden Globes tried that though, and
oh
and
shit, you're right. Yeah,
And
I
everybody
forgot.
just panned to that award because nobody knew what the hell the criteria was. So
Yeah, I completely forgot about that. Yep, you got me. All right. So yeah, I'm out of answers.
you and the Academy both.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
okay, again, I was higher on the overall ceremony than you were. I thought it was fantastically presented, if not watched by the masses. But
Hmm.
we got summer blockbuster season coming up. So, any final thoughts on the ceremony?
No, I think I've pretty much gone through all my all my notes and all my opinions on it.
All right, yeah, yeah, I would welcome Conan O'Brien back as a host. So
Yeah, yeah, sure. Yeah, I mean, I can't think of any better options off the top of my head. So
they can dust Billy Crystal off, maybe.
yeah, yeah. One of these days, well, it's probably way too gone for that by this point, but for a while there, it seemed like a kind of out of the box wild option would have been Jim Carrey, but I think he's now too much in his just weird, almost semi-retired phase, so maybe he wouldn't be a good choice anymore. But
Yeah, I don't think he'd accept either.
yeah, maybe not. Yeah.
I mean, even if they back the Brinks truck up, I don't think you'd want to do that.
Yeah,
Maybe Adam Sandler. Maybe they're forecasting something. Who
maybe.
knows? So that is
Oh, sorry.
awards.
I will say one thing. I was disappointed though that Conan O'Brien, he used to have a long-standing joke with Paul Rudd, where there was always a clip of Marley and Me, and I was somewhat
No, no, no,
disappointed.
no, not Marley and Me. That's a dog movie.
Sorry.
It's,
Uh,
Mac
what is
and Me, Mac and
Mac
Me.
and Me? Sorry, Mac and Me, right? Not Marley and Me, Mac and Me. And I was somewhat disappointed that we didn't get a Mac and Me clip run during the broadcast. Anyway, last thought.
Yeah, the last thing we need was a Marley and Me clip to bring the whole mood down.
Yeah, not Marley and Me.
Yeah, I was mad because it was a McDonald's sponsored movie. So yeah, that would have been great. Anyway, so that is award season done and dusted. And next up, we're in mid-March now. So kiss the Blarney Stone, everybody, because we're going to be doing a St. Patrick's Day special. And we're going to be talking about either Irish actors slash filmmakers or Ireland in film. We haven't quite decided yet, but stay tuned because we are going to be discussing Ireland and it will be being released sometime around St. Patrick's Day. So keep an eye out for that one. And until next time, as always, I am Zach Miller, Martin
And I'm
Cook,
Mark.
and we'll see you next time on the Unsolicited Film Reviews podcast. Adrian Brody's still talking.
Bye, everyone.